On this Tuesday night, the U.S. Defense Secretaries claim the next phase of the Iran war could be decisive.
And there's almost nothing they can militarily do about it.
And the U.S. president's message to allies about where to get their oil. The impact of soaring gas prices on Canadians, and not just at the pumps.
It affects everything from the top down.
And the turbulence for airlines as jet fuel supplies dwindle. Canada's much criticized vaccine injury support program ends. What's replacing it and why? Plus, he worked tirelessly to make the world a better place.
One is put on this planet to improve the human condition.
Remembering Canadian politician, activist, and humanitarian Stephen Lewis.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The price of oil has jumped again after the U.S. president lashed out at allies. Donald Trump told them to build up their courage and go and get their own oil from the Strait of Hormuz or else buy it from the U.S.
We'll be leaving very soon, and if France or some other country wants to get oil or gas, they'll go up through the Strait and Hormuz Strait. They'll go right up there and they'll be able to fend for themselves.
He told the Wall Street Journal today he's willing to end the war even if that critical sea route remains closed. The longer Iran maintains a chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz, the more the world economy will feel it. We will get to the impact on gas prices in Canada in just a moment, but we begin with Jackson Proskow and the signals from the Trump administration.
In his first public update in nearly 2 weeks, the U.S. Defense Secretary insisted the war with Iran is entering its final stages.
The upcoming days will be decisive. Iran knows that, and there's almost nothing they can militarily do about it.
It's the same message from President Donald Trump, who claims it's all coming to an end soon.
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon.
Despite the growing American military buildup, Pete Hegseth would not say whether the U.S. might put troops on the ground to seize Iran's oil or enriched uranium.
You can't fight and win a war if you tell your adversary what you are willing to do or what you are not willing to do, to include boots on the ground.
For all of the Pentagon's confidence, the realities of this conflict are increasingly grim. Iran is still able to fire missiles at targets throughout the region, striking this oil tanker in Dubai Monday. And it still controls shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump's tone in recent days suggests the U.S. may now simply declare victory and leave before the strait is reopened.
I would worry about handing the Iranians a strategic victory, but I worry more about the continuation of this war and the prospect of deploying ground forces.
In a lengthy social media post, President Donald Trump told nations worried about fuel shortages to buy from the U.S. or go to the Strait of Hormuz and just take it. The hard part is done. Go get your own oil, he wrote.
I think it'll be very safe, actually, but we have nothing to do with that. What happens to the Strait, we're not going to have anything to do with it.
Might want to start learning how to fight for yourself.
Officials from China and Pakistan have now released their own proposal for reopening the strait. Trump suggested it will reopen automatically after the war. Absent a clear outcome, escalation or a wind down both carry enormous costs for the U.S.
If the war ended tomorrow, it would be a strategic defeat for the United States.
Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
President Trump's war with Iran has pushed U.S. gas prices above $4 a gallon. And in Canada, prices have also reached their highest level since 2022. Canadians are not only feeling it at the pumps. Heidi Petracek looks at the effect it's having on the entire supply chain as the cost of transporting food and goods keeps rising.
Oh, wow.
Folks filling up in Nova Scotia Tuesday paid an extra 7 cents per litre after a price adjustment overnight.
It affects everything from the top down.
It's the same story across the country. Prices on the West Coast approaching $2.17 and on the East Coast beyond $1.88. The national average at the pumps now $1.73.5 a litre.
It is going to affect people's pocketbooks immediately. The issue is now how many different aspects of that pocketbook are going to be affected.
The war in the Middle East and Iran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz has sent oil prices up about 57% this month, which has a ripple effect through global supply chains.
If you're not going to pay for it at the pump, you might pay for it when you're buying clothes. If you are buying shampoo, if you are buying deodorant, all of these things have petroleum in them.
What can you do? Like, we already drive as little as we can. Certainly we're making choices based on the prices.
Small business owners are trying to minimize the impact on customers and their bottom line.
So you try to do as much as you can to keep, your margins strong.
But the increasing costs of shipping and transportation, plus higher expenses for farmers, are starting to add up.
Just this week, got a 12% increase in the pallet rate that we pay to have our produce come in. So that's not a small amount.
As diesel prices also soar, a group representing truck operators wants temporary diesel tax relief from government.
For a small time, it might be absorbed, but if things continue in the same pace, then it's going to be passed on to the consumer.
The Prime Minister non-committal when asked about cutting the federal gas tax.
We'll have a fiscal event in the spring with the spring update, and that would be the right time to fully answer that question.
Canadians concerned about their cost of living now facing the impact of a war out of their control. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
America's allies are not willing to be drawn into the war Israel and the U.S. started, refusing to step up to help secure the Strait of Hormuz, despite the pressure from President Trump. But every country is feeling the impact, and one of the biggest pressures is on aviation fuel. Redmond Shannon looks at how the airline industry is trying to cope.
Before the start of the war in Iran, Dubai was the world's busiest airport for international travel. For decades, airlines based in the Persian Gulf have used their geographic location to become world leaders. But Iranian airstrikes like this one have forced those airlines to significantly reduce their operations, making traveling to, through, or even around the Gulf difficult and expensive.
The effects of the Iran war on aviation are spreading far beyond the Middle East. Concerns about jet fuel shortages have doubled its price, and travellers will have to pay.
Fares have gone up 15 to 20% across the industry. Of course they do that. There's sort of no choice.
The CEO of United Airlines says it has cancelled 5% of summer flights, knowing that rising prices will reduce demand. The other reason that airlines may have to cancel is simply because the tanks could run dry.
The first impact is going to be felt in Asia, because that's where most of the oil is headed through the Strait of Hormuz.
Korean Air has entered emergency management mode, cutting back operating costs. There is concern in the UK too, which gets half of its jet fuel from the Gulf. Canada, on the other hand, produces its own kerosene, but global fuel demand will still impact the price. Airlines also need to factor in psychology.
You can have a decrease in demand due to other factors, such as people deciding not to travel because of the uncertainty.
These planes lined up in storage are reminiscent of the COVID pandemic. This is not that, but just like 2020, airlines are entering turbulent airspace. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Israel's defense minister now says its forces intend to occupy a large part of southern Lebanon. Israel Katz says the IDF will destroy all the homes and villages of the 600,000 Lebanese people who have been forced to flee because of Israeli attacks. He vows to inflict Gaza-like destruction in the area and says the so-called security buffer will remain even after the current war ends. Hezbollah has been firing missiles at Israel from Lebanon, but Israel's response is being condemned by European leaders and Canada's Prime Minister.
It's an invasion of Lebanon. It's a violation of their territorial sovereignty, integrity, and sovereignty. And the point I was making as well, from a practical perspective, the government of Lebanon has banned Hezbollah, is taking action, is trying to take action against Hezbollah and their terrorist activities and their threats to Israel. And that is the purported justification for this invasion. So we condemn it.
King Charles is going ahead with a state visit to the United States, despite some politicians in the UK saying the trip will be a humiliation. Buckingham Palace says the King and Queen will travel to Washington in late April. President Trump has mocked and berated the UK and claimed the relationship is not what it used to be. The King is expected to address Congress and mark the 250th anniversary of U.S. independence and later travel to Bermuda. A Quebec judge has ordered Just for Laughs founder Gilbert Rozon to pay his accusers $880,000. 8 women were part of a group of 9 who accused Rozon of sexual assault and misconduct between 1980 and 2004.
This victory doesn't erase my past, but validating the truth allows me to reclaim the power I lost.
The damages were awarded after a 10-month civil trial. Rozon, the founder of the International Comedy Festival, claimed he had consensual relations with 3 of the women. He denies all other allegations. The Public Health Agency of Canada is taking over the beleaguered vaccine injury support program from a private firm, and it's being rebranded. Melissa Ridgen is part of the Global News team that's been investigating the program over the past year. Melissa, what changes are expected?
Donna, the Vaccine Injury Support Program, widely criticized for failing to help those who suffered serious permanent injury from a COVID vaccine, is no more. On Wednesday, it will be replaced by the Vaccine Impact Assistance Program, as the government distances itself from the program they contracted a private firm to administer since 2021.
A Global News investigation found that of $54 million the firm Oxero was given to run the program, $36 million was spent on administrative costs, while thousands of people diagnosed by their doctors with vaccine injuries were caught up in red tape without help. And others say payments were often incorrect and long delayed. The most recent data shows 252 people have received $21 million total since the program began in 2021. That's less than the cost taxpayers have paid to administer the program. Some 3,500 people have applied and thousands are still waiting on a decision. On Monday, public health officials held a virtual meeting with claimants.
I really, really, truly hope that the government actually does come through with its proposal and its promises this time, and that we actually are compensated for the injuries that we received for our mandated vaccines.
Donna, there's good news for 225 people who were denied support for missing the 3-year deadline to apply because it took too long to diagnose their injury. They can reapply now, and health officials say they will move quickly to process other outstanding claims. The priority is to make this program work better than the one it's replacing.
Okay, Melissa Ridgen in Winnipeg, thank you. It looks like all systems go for the Artemis II mission around the moon. 4 astronauts, including Canadian Jeremy Hansen, are set to blast off tomorrow. A 2-hour launch window begins at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, and the weather is looking good.
Look outside right now, great weather. Hopefully we will keep all of that, although the breezes continue to be an issue for us, but a minor one for us in terms of weather.
There was a lot of smiles today, so felt really good about that. As the team is preparing, I think everybody's pretty excited and understands the significance of this launch.
What to pack for the first crewed mission to go into lunar orbit in over 50 years? Well, Hansen says he's bringing some maple syrup and maple cookies and 4 moon-shaped pendants for his wife and 3 children, engraved with the phrase moon and back. Tiger Woods' latest crash coming up, what police say the golf superstar was carrying. Golfer Tiger Woods says he's stepping away from golf and seeking treatment after his latest car crash. A sheriff's report into the Florida crash last week says Woods had hydrocodone pills in his pocket and was sluggish with bloodshot eyes. Woods told deputies he took prescription medication earlier that morning and that he was looking down at his cell phone when his Land Rover clipped a truck and rolled off the road. He was charged with driving under the influence, property damage, and refusing a urine test. He's pleaded not guilty. In a statement, Woods says he is going to work towards lasting recovery. A familiar face is returning to pro basketball in Toronto. Former Raptors executive Masai Ujiri is joining the ownership group of the Toronto Tempo, the city's new WNBA team. Ujiri spent 12 years in the Raptors front office, first as general manager and later as president. He's widely credited for building the roster that won the Raptors the 2019 NBA championship. Ahead, a setback on the path for a new pipeline from Alberta to BC's coast. The people behind the Alberta independence movement say they've collected enough signatures to trigger a referendum on whether to separate. The Stay Free Alberta group claims their petition now has more than 177,000 signatures and claim they've reached the required threshold more than a month before the deadline.
We want everybody to keep working like we're 100,000 signatures behind. The more signatures we get, the more it legitimizes our movement.
At the same time, there is a deadline approaching for the Memorandum of Understanding Alberta signed with the federal government to build a new pipeline. Prime Minister Mark Carney says there will likely be no deal in time for tomorrow's deadline. That MOU set April 1st as the target for Alberta to agree on a carbon price on emissions. Heather Yourex-West explains why both sides say they need more time.
It was billed as a path for Alberta to see a potential new pipeline built to the BC coast, a memorandum of understanding promising to ease federal regulations in exchange for an agreement from Alberta on a series of climate initiatives, including increasing the industrial carbon tax, with a deadline for that commitment of April 1st.
Will we perfectly meet the first? Not necessarily, but do we have momentum? We're making progress? Yes. We'll get the right agreement at the right time, but I anticipate soon.
The sticking point between the two sides is time. Premier Danielle Smith says Alberta has no problem reaching a carbon price of $132 a ton eventually.
Looking at where the world is right now, with Europe talking about suspending their industrial pricing, the Americans not having it at all, industry telling us that there are more attractive environments to invest in because they don't have carbon taxes. I mean, I think all of that has to be brought into context for this.
We did the number crunching and we found out there's $40 billion worth of investments in low carbon projects in Alberta that are at stake in this MOU. The quicker that we can actually get these policies finalized, the faster we can provide certainty so that these projects can actually move forward.
While the Alberta government is developing a proposal for a new pipeline, a private sector proponent has yet to come on board. The CEO of TC Energy telling an audience in Ottawa, when it comes to competing with jurisdictions like the United States, there is still more work to be done.
If we want Canada to compete and win in a time-bound global race for capital, we need to act differently starting now.
The quest to become an energy superpower putting Canada at odds with its climate goals. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
She's only a month old, and now a baby giraffe at the Toronto Zoo has a name. This is Imara. It's a Swahili name that translates to strong and resilient. And since her birth on February 22nd, the zoo says she's proving to be just that.
She's been growing. She's gone from about 6'4" to almost 7 feet. She's put on almost 100 pounds. She's doing a great job with mom.
Imara is a Maasai giraffe. There are fewer than 35,000 left on the planet. The species has declined by 50% in the past 30 years, but the population is now stabilizing. He was a passionate champion of social justice. Next, we look back at the life of Canadian politician, diplomat, and journalist Stephen Lewis. One of Canada's most eloquent and strong voices for social justice has died at the age of 88. Stephen Lewis took on many roles. He led the Ontario NDP. He represented Canada at the United Nations. He was a journalist, an activist, and a powerful advocate for human rights in Africa. He's also the father of Avi Lewis, who was just chosen as the new federal NDP leader. Eric Sorensen looks at the mark Stephen Lewis left on the world.
He came to talk about famine in Africa, and even Stephen Lewis struggled to describe it.
No words. You've seen the images. No words handle the human desolation.
But as always, Stephen Lewis found the right words. They animated the man and his lifelong passion for social justice.
Has the world gone mad? Why is it possible that human lives, African lives, are so expendable?
Lewis was a natural orator. As a college student, he debated Senator John F. Kennedy when the future U.S. president came to the University of Toronto. He was the son of another great speaker, David Lewis, an architect of Canada's new Democratic Party. Like his dad, Stephen joined the fledgling NDP and led the Ontario wing to official opposition. His socialist politics would come to define his view of the world.
My father always conveyed to me that one is put on this planet to improve the human condition.
But Lewis wanted more than politics, and who should offer him the opportunity but a prime minister of a completely different stripe? Conservative Brian Mulroney made this social democrat Canada's ambassador to the United Nations. Lewis joked about his early miscues at the UN.
Obviously thinking, what lunatic have they dispatched to this place?
But it was a turning point in his life. Lewis, Mulroney, and Canada helped mobilize international pressure to end apartheid and the racist regime in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was forever grateful to this country. As Lewis became a towering figure, many in his old party urged him to take over the federal New Democrats after Ed Broadbent retired.
No matter how much I contemplate the prospect, I simply cannot cross the Rubicon.
It would be his son Avi Lewis who would pick up the political torch, just this week becoming the 9th elected leader of the federal NDP.
Fighting alongside social movements, showing up where we are needed,
And sounding like a chip off the old block. Father and son joked once about their approach to socialism and politics.
People will look back and say, God, Avi Lewis, he was so tentative, he was so cautious, he was so without passion and vision.
In a statement, the family said Stephen Lewis had been battling cancer with the same indomitable energy he brought to his lifelong work, the unending struggle for justice and dignity for every human life. Lewis devoted much of his life after politics to where he believed it was needed most, becoming the UN Special Envoy on HIV-AIDS in Africa. He began a foundation that raised millions of dollars for projects across Africa that saved countless lives. He was personally humble but effusive about others, like his old NDP friend Jack Layton upon his passing.
He wanted, in the simplest and most visceral terms, a more generous Canada.
What greater calling is there, he believed, than trying to make a better world?
It is a wonderful thing to immerse yourself in social change and to feel the sense of accomplishment of improving the human condition.
Improving the human condition is what Stephen Lewis did.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is the Pavilion at Assiniboine Park in Winnipeg. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.